We did have an issue, I guess that's the right way to call it in the ER, with the water tank. We have two issues with the water tank. And both issues go hand in hand. The first issue that we have with the water tank is anybody that's been on council and anybody that's been in the meeting has heard Alan and then me talk about the fact that the tank calls you constantly.
Yeah.
It's always calling you. Well, the tank stopped calling. I assumed if the tank wasn't calling, everything was good. Junior had been keeping me informed that the pumps were maintained, the pumps were running, the pressures were up, and everything was good. So, 2 weeks ago ER, or last week,
Maybe 2 weeks.
got a call from Junior. Something's wrong with the water tank. Okay, what's wrong with the water tank? Well, you only got 8 feet of water in the tank. All right, let's just watch it. Let's take the pumps off the auto cycle, put them on continuous pump. We'll monitor the tank. Both pumps running as hard as they can run. I kept checking with Junior, and what time did you and I get together that day? About 1:30, wasn't it?
I think so.
1 foot of water in the water tank. So we spent, Junior and Brian and myself and ER, and ER is very well knowledged in waterworks and operation. So he was our ace in the hole go-to guy. And he ran every check he knew to run. And we had water everywhere. We had water in town. None of the residents in town lost water. They might have had a little bit less water pressure. Westgate suffered the most with decreased water pressure. But everybody had water. And everywhere on the main line between the pumping station and the tank had water. The fire hydrant right there at the corner of Jim Martin's property at the bottom of the hill where the water tank is had tremendous water pressure and water flow on it. We had water everywhere except we had no water going in the tank. Nothing. So we kept calling different people. I even called EC Pace contractors who built the tank for the town back. And he said, I've got a crew in Clifton Forge. I'm going to try to get them down there to help you. He called me back. He said, they can't leave. He said, they got more trouble in Clifton Forge than they can shake a stick at. They can't leave. It'll be next week before I can get anybody there. I mean, we had tried everything. And the only thing we could come up with is that somewhere between the bottom of the hill and the water tank, the line must be frozen. I mean, that was the only reasonable explanation that we could come up with, right? You'd open the valve, there's a release valve, if you will, in the pump house right at the base of the water tank, and you could hear it would suck air in, then it would blow the air back out. There was no rhyme or reason as to why we didn't have water at the water tank. And then Junior, finally about 5 o'clock, Junior said, well, Glenn Bryant helped build this water tank. Why don't we call him? And I had forgotten completely about the fact that Glenn had been involved in it. Glenn had been working. He showed up at the water tank dressed much like I was. Suit, tie, shirt, dress shoes. Not enough clothes to stay warm, but still he came. He went through everything at the tank. He said, I don't understand it. I can't figure it out. Fool with it. Probably another hour. He said, I gotta go change clothes. I'll be back. But you said, let's stop at the pump house before we go. And Glenn walked in the pump house, started looking around, just stood there in the door. He said, the valve right there needs to be closed. He said that is the bypass valve, and all you're doing is pumping your water in a loop. You're not running any water to the tank. So we closed the valve, turned the pumps on, went back to the water tank. We had taken a plug out of the main line in the pump house at the bottom of the water tank to see what we had. Well, when we got back, what we had was a building full of water, and water going everywhere. So ER closed the valve on that, let it drain down, put the plug back in, and opened the valve back up. 3 hours time, we had 3 feet of water in the tank. By the next morning, we had 9 feet of water in the tank, and Alleghany County was calling at 5:30 because they couldn't keep up with the demand of our pumps drawing everything, and their tank was empty. Their tank that serves Iron Gate in this end of the county was empty. I asked what we could do to help out, so we turned our pumps off. We had water in the tank, we had water for the town, and gave them a few hours to get their tank back full. Constant conversation with the county. And finally we turned our pumps back on and got our tank up to about 10 feet of water. And he said, I'm cutting the valve off, coming to Iron Gate, cut your pumps off. I need a day. So a day later, we turned the pumps back on, topped our tank off. In fact, we ran our tank over in the nighttime. And that was on Friday morning. So we wound up turning our pumps off on Friday morning with a full tank. Left our pumps off all day Saturday, all day Sunday, all day Monday, which was Martin Luther King Day, all day Tuesday. We still had 10 feet of water in the tank, so we had good water. And finally on Wednesday of last week, we turned our pumps back on, got the tank back full. They're on auto now, so it's up and running like it should be. I don't know how the valve got opened. I don't know who opened the valve. I don't even know how long that valve has been open. But based on what I saw on the drawdown of the tank on a daily basis, I would say that it would take us normal use about a month to empty that tank. Don't you think, ER?
Yeah, maybe. I really have no idea.
So apparently that valve has been open, or had been open for quite some time, and we didn't know it. So the water problem with the tank is solved. The communication problem with the computer system at the tank is a work in progress, because it's still not calling. I can go up there, and I'll guarantee you if you go up there right now and go in, it's going to have a code on the screen, and then it's going to be saying that it's calling me. But it's not calling me. Then it's going to say it's calling the county and so on, and it's not calling anybody. And if you try to call it back, which I've always been able to call in and get a report on the tank, it's not answering. So we've got a glitch, and ER is working on that with the guy that works on their communications for their tanks for Clifton Forge. So hopefully we'll get that solved and back up and running pretty soon. So that's kind of where we are with the water tank. And I know that there were a lot of people that had a lot of questions that came in and talked to Wendy about it and different things. So, you know, I'll be happy to answer any questions. ER, I'm sure, will be happy to answer any questions or try to explain it to anybody about what happened. And I will report on this again Thursday night for the folks that are not here, but I just want everybody in this room to know kind of where we were with it and what took place at the water tank. Anything you feel like you should add, ER? Or?
That sums it up.
So, any questions of anybody about that? One thing that came out of that, and that is Wendy now knows that she has the ability to post on the website and Facebook, right?
Well, Facebook.
Facebook, okay. The other thing that I want to make, and I'll report again on this Thursday night too, as soon as I knew that we had a problem and that ELR and I talked and it was a problem that we identified that we were not going to be able to solve quickly, I immediately called Wendy and asked her to notify all the media. I think you got a notification. Radio station, which she said that wasn't much fun calling them. She didn't want to do that anymore. Posted it at the various places in town. And while she was doing that, we notified all of the fire departments and the county dispatch that we had no reserve of water in our tank, so that if something did happen down here and we had a major fire, or there was a major fire in the vicinity from northern Botetourt all the way through, because they depend on us for water too, not to count on us for the water that they needed and plan on tanking their water to the fire. The response from them was very understanding and very supportive. Just ask us when you get your water tank back up and running, let us know, which we did. Thank goodness we didn't have to face that, but you know, those are things that you don't think about on a daily basis, but when you get into a situation like that, you have to cover those bases to make sure that you don't get caught short. And I think it all went as well as it could and as smoothly as it could. The one thing that we don't have, and this is going to change, this is going to change very quickly. We don't have anybody involved here that has any type of a working knowledge of that system up there, other than ER. And he doesn't know that system specifically, he just knows general waterworks. So I'm going to try to get somebody from the Pace Construction Company to come over here and give us some type of a little in-service or what have you, if you will, on the operation of that system, so that we should be able to go in that pump house and say, this valve stays open, this valve stays closed, this is the pressure we should have, we should always have positive water flow on this line, maybe not always on this line, just so that we know the next time we have to troubleshoot a problem that we can deal with that.
So that valve should only be open though in case of emergency, right?
The way I understand that, and I've heard Alan talk about this before, that there's a bypass built in the system. And the way that he explained it to me for the bypass was, if Clifton Forge would get a contaminant in their water, and we knew it soon enough, we can divert their water away from our tank and still have good water for our customers. He also told me that, say they had a major fire here in town and they needed more pressure than they could get, that we could use the bypass, increase the RPMs on the pumps, and get them the water pressure that they need. But there's nobody here that knows the operation of that particular function. So we need to get somebody to tell us how to do that.
I'm just gonna see how a valve opens itself.
It doesn't.
So I mean,
It's human error.
since it's
Somebody
just an emergency, since it's for an emergency, are you gonna put a lock or camera or
So what we need to do probably is exactly right, is lock it, put a sign on it that says this valve remains closed except in an emergency situation. From what I'm being told, it should never be open,
right?
except in an extreme situation. I can't sit here and tell you who opened the valve because I wasn't there, and I haven't been in that building in months, to be honest with you. But somebody had to physically open the valve. Now, the other side of that coin is, that valve may have been open for a very long time. And we just kept cycling the water and using the water, leaving our reserve in our tank with a very little drawdown on it. But because there was no more water coming from the county, or not the pressure and flow that we were normally getting from the county because of their water leaks and water problems, is what brought our problem on. So I think that, I honestly, the way that I have understood this system is that both functions could be working simultaneously and not really ever affect each other. But because we had extenuating circumstances contributing to the problem that's supplying us our water on the front end, very possibly made our problem worse.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense, ER?
It does.
So, you know, it's a learning situation.
The Verge Street thing that might happen?
Yeah.
Oh.
So hopefully we'll get some training in here and avert any other problems. Any other questions or comments about the water situation?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
since you've been doing your talking, and I'm sitting there with my head rattling.
Is that what I heard?
Yeah. Do you think that we could have a meeting with Mr. Garton over here?
Mr. Garton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And find out if that spring is still functioning up
The spring is functioning. The spring is got water in it, but there is no fire protection at the rubber plant.
I'm not worried about the fire protection at the plant, that the pumps and everything still work.
Yeah, we can check on that.
Because if, like you say, if we run into this problem again and they need water, there's an excellent source there if we could get him to, you know, cut that on. That way, for fire, you can always go to the rubber plant and hook up on that hydrant down there and get all the water you want.
If the supply lines are still in place, that's the question with that. And see, Robbie Boyd even told me today, he said, before it wouldn't have been an issue because they had the pond at the rubber plant they could go and draft out of.
Yeah.
But the pond's gone. They filled that up, it's gone. And the water tank at the rubber plant is empty. So before you could get any water from the rubber plant, you're gonna have to fill that tank.
Oh, is that the way it?
Yeah. That's the way I understand, that the hydrants in the plant are fed from the tank, aren't they, Slick?
Filled from spring up there, yep.
And it's all in through the tank for fire suppression.
Well, I mean,
It's worth checking on.
Yeah.
And he may even be willing to fill the tank and leave it there just in case we need it, so. But from what I understand, the tank has been empty for a while,
yeah, that might be a bad thing there.
so.
You know how they go when you don't.
You don't take care of them and maintain
Yeah.
them, yeah.
But that, I mean, at least it's worth a try.
Any other questions on that?